I think. Okay, now YouTube's gonna confirm. Hey, look, I think we're live. Okay, I'm gonna roll the dice and say that we're live. It is Monday night after hours. I'm here joined today with Gary Kidney. He's going to talk about his book, and I have a couple of questions about your illustrious educational career because I did some reading on you. But yeah, so I guess we can just dive right into it and get back to the questions because I had to move them. Alrighty. What can you tell us about the Eagle Scout picture without giving away too many spoilers? As I'm a fanatic for virtually everything World War II, I'm quite interested in the description that you laid out in it. Like, I love that. Like, there's no documentary that I haven't watched, so I really enjoyed the description.
So this is a found story. I met the man who claimed to have lived this tale. As a 17-year-old, he was recruited by the US government unofficially to become a spy in Nazi Germany. That was in 1940 when he was recruited. They placed him in Germany in 1941 in February, so that's 10 months before Pearl Harbor. He's already engaged in what will become America's next war at that time. He was an Eagle Scout and probably chosen for two or three reasons. One, he was really good with electronics and technology, and he comes from a native German-speaking area in Texas, a town called Fredericksburg. And so he was native in English and in German and could fit pretty well into the society. You'll discover in the book that they sent him because at 17, 18, you get your final documentation in Germany at 18. So you didn't have to forge as much information to put him in before he was 18 than you would have had to have done for another spy who was older, a grown man, for instance. So putting him in the Hitler Youth was easier to do. Just like in the US in days gone by, you didn't really get any documentation until you were 16 and got a driver's license. And then suddenly you had some kind of documentation, unless you traveled with a passport or things like that. So that plays into the picture of what happens in this. The day he arrives in Germany, he tells a lie and makes a mistake. And that haunts him as the Gestapo are after him for the remainder of his time in Germany. Every little mistake could end up putting him in peril. His goal is to find out what he can about Germany and transfer that information back to the US. They want to know about military. They want to know what's happening with the Jews. And they want to know about new technology going on in Germany. So his job is to report all that back.
Oh, sounds interesting. I didn't know they did that kind of stuff. So, excuse me.
He may have been the first American spy for a long time. There was no spy organization.
Yeah, original OG spy.
Yes.
Let's see. So the Eagle Scout picture is your first book, correct?
That is true.
And you just established that it's based on actual events. Were you able to oh, I guess there's no really a good word for guarantee. Like, were you able to confirm like a lot of the story that was told to you, or?
So I have not been able to verify that the story is true, simply because the government has denied me access to any records that might be able to prove that. But I went to Germany and visited all of the locations that were present and described in the book, and they all worked out exactly as he described them. As a matter of fact, I wrote a good deal of the book in Germany while I was at the various locations. I became convinced that the story was true, though, on a trip to Hyde Park in upstate New York. I visited the FDR library and home. And while I was there, I took the tour, and the docent said, we have all kinds of records here, on file. And I said, well, I'm interested. Do you have records of who was in the White House and being entertained and what was served for meals? And they said yes. And so I said, Here's a particular date I'm interested in. What can you tell me? And they said, well, it was fried chicken, corn on the cob, and mashed potatoes that was served in the White House dining room. And it was ordered special by FDR to be Georgia or Southern fried chicken because Eleanor was out of the town at the time and he kind of cheated on the diet he was supposed to stay on. And it said that FDR was present along with Secretary Knox and Bill Donovan and two unknown guests. And you know what? That tracked exactly with my story
Yeah,
that I heard from the man who told it to me. So I became convinced it was worth writing up. And I guess I'm addicted to untold stories from the war. And so I thought this was one I was going to publish.
that's nice. Jennifer says, "Wow, is the author himself a military vet or has family who are?" Um, she's asking you.
So my older brothers, I'm a last family member, two older brothers who served in the war, and their tales from World War II are really what got me interested in knowing more about World War II and about World War II stories. One of them was present on Pearl Harbor when the Japanese attacked, and the other one was present on the shore on the shoulders of Mount Suribachi on Iwo Jima when the famous flag raising took place.
Nice.
And so I loved hearing their stories, and that has always made me of interest in World War II stories, especially ones that are unknown and untold.
The ones that don't get a lot of media attention.
Yeah, so
That's
you mentioned in your press release for this, the article that I've written on Jeanette Rankin.
mm,
That was one of those stories that I investigated a long time ago when I was in high school, trying to figure out why she was the only person to vote no to going to war with Japan.
yeah. It was a good read, by the way. If anybody has a chance to read that, it's on my blog post on my website, WriterSanctuary.com. The link to that article actually. It was a very interesting read. I enjoyed it. Um, so how long did it take for you to research everything that went into writing the Eagle Scout picture?
Long time. I spent 10 years on it, and that included travel time and research time to try to make sure that I was being exceedingly historically accurate. And so, by as much work as I can put into it, every event that is in the book that comes from history is accurate. And the descriptions of things are accurate because I actually went there and looked into those places.
Nice. I bet you that cost a pretty penny. I don't know if
It was worth it. I got some fun out of travel too, as well as the chance to write a book.
I'd do it just for, yeah, my book research would just, I'd wind up getting lost in historical, like I would love to go to do stuff like that, but I don't know if I'd actually have a chance to or remember to do the research. I would just visit everywhere.
Well, I did a
I'm a
little bit of
tourist.
that as well. So I took along, but on my first trip to Germany with the book, uh, Eric Larson's In the Garden of the Beasts, and that's about the U.S. ambassador's daughter who falls in love with a Gestapo officer, and a lot of that happens in the Tiergarten. And so I sat in the Tiergarten and read that chapter of the book when they met there for the first tryst. And after that, I turned around, got my laptop out, and wrote my first scene from the Eagle Scout picture.
Huh, that would like add more to it. Just sitting there and then being in the spot where they were writing it.
That's right. So
Yeah,
I love both reading and writing in the
that's
event that takes place in the book.
yeah, that's kind of fun. I would love to do that, but in order for me to do that, I'd have to learn time travel because it's kind of hard to hang out in Atlantic City in 1874. So
Well, that's probably true. It's one of the challenges of writing things that are historical is trying to capture the essence of both the time and the place.
yeah. Jennifer asks, "Will you write more stories, maybe posthumous memoirs for them?"
So I have several more untold stories that I would like to have an opportunity to tell at some spot or another. Whether I write them up as a fiction story or whether I write it as a piece of actual history, like the Jeanette Rankin story or the Viet Harlan story that's also on the website, I don't know for sure. I have a short story that will probably end up on the website. Probably within a couple weeks or so. I still have to do some finishing touches on it. It is about an American soldier who resigned his commission and stayed in Germany to teach young boys English at the end of the war. And I won't do a spoiler that tells you why he wanted to stay, but that short story will end up being on the website. It is historical fiction again. I researched it. It comes from a true story, but who said what, is all my imagination.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I had somebody usually have somebody here that does a lot of historical fiction, but she doesn't seem to be here today. So, um, let's see. So you've heard the stories from your family. Um, what prompted you to decide to write the Eagle Scout picture aside from all the other stories that you've heard? Was there any one thing that just kind of grabbed you?
Yes, the whole story.
No?
It was just amazing. So as I'm sitting on a picnic bench on Galveston Beach, hearing the old man tell me the story, I said to him, "You should write this up as a book." And he says, "Well, I signed a non-disclosure agreement with the government a long time ago not to do it. But if you want to tell this story, I'd love for you to." And so
Loophole.
I kind of I kind of did it to fulfill that promise.
Yeah, well, that's kind of cool. Um, a little bit more than kind of cool. I mean, you just performed a loophole to get a story out.
Yes.
Did you ever find him
Yeah,
back and get him a autographed copy? Or
he died, and
oh,
I actually waited until after his death to do it because I didn't want any complications with the telling of the story. And so he died in 2010. He was already in his 70s when I met him.
uh, that's sad. Really cool that you kind of immortalized him though. So
So one of the problems we live in at this moment is most of the stories um, we're no longer going to hear because the people who could tell them are passing away on a daily basis.
oh yeah,
And there are so many little stories that I think the world needs to hear. We so often teach history by talking about dates and battles, when we really need to be talking about his story or her story. The individual little stories that make up history are far more interesting to me than just the stuff you read about in the textbook.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's only so much you can get from like a documentary. They
Mhm.
show you the pictures and the videos, but to get a firsthand recollection of it and the emotion that goes behind it, that's a whole different level.
Agreed. The emotion is one of the important things, and the other aspect of it with the motive with emotion is motivation. Understand what went through their minds in that process,
Yeah.
and that was one of the things that was challenging in the book. So in the book, I have to inhabit the mind of a Gestapo officer who is trying to track down the hero of the book, and so I really had to understand how a Gestapo officer would think,
Mm,
what would motivate them, why would they become a Gestapo officer in the first place, and why would they want to dig into this story? And so, for a little bit, I had to be a Nazi.
yeah.
And I found the big question I wanted to know was why would anybody have done that? Hard for an
Yeah.
American to become that, but how would anybody have done that? And so the other fact piece on my website is a story about a movie produced by a director called Viet Harlan.
Yeah.
The movie's called Judsus. It's one of the few banned movies in the world. And I went to Germany and I watched that movie, and suddenly I understood how people were made to hate the Jews
Mm,
by propaganda. It is probably the most propagandic movie ever made.
Yeah. There's a few times where I've made comments on social media that authors have to have like a touch of multiple personality disorder.
I kind of think I did for a while. So my wife would tell me, you woke up in the middle of the night screaming and yelling in German, and I did not know the German language.
There you
Never studied.
go. A method writer. Let's see. Penumbra Mind says that is so true. This is Maggie. There are amazing stories that have being lost for the last 3 decades. Yeah, because this is 2025 and the war started in the 30s. So, I mean, got to figure that the average person there was between the ages of 18 and 25. So they're going to be pushing the envelope today. So,
Yes,
yep. And
not
there's a
many of them are still around. There's a story I would love to have gotten. The last bullet fired in anger in World War II was fired in years after the war on Lubang Island in the Pacific.
mm,
They're one of those Japanese soldiers who never surrendered and didn't know that the war was over, started shooting at people. I'd love to have his story, but you can't do it. He's gone.
yeah. I can kind of fill in the blanks, but I wouldn't do it justice.
That's true.
Jennifer says, have you read any of the oral histories taped in the archives at higher ed for World War II? I was able to tape some and listen to the memories. It was amazing.
Yes, I have read a great many, especially the Shoah series, the Holocaust series, and trying to help understand a little bit of that. Um, some of the scenes in the book Eagle Scout Picture happen in concentration camps, and I wanted to get a firsthand view and look at how those concentration camps functioned.
Yeah, that'd be very disturbing, I think. I mean, how do you I don't know, because like recently we did one on cults, and I've listened to the Jim Jones tapes, and that kind of stuff just sticks with you. It's
It
haunting.
is.
So is that when you listen to those, is that something that you feel that will stick with you forever?
Yes.
All right. Um, Jennifer also says most are transcribed from the tapes and available free online now. I didn't know that.
Mhm.
Let's see. Penumbra says I included some stories from World War II vets in my Pagosa Cliffs series. A doctor who became a veterinarian after being in the Pacific because he couldn't bear to work on people anymore. Have you come across stuff like that where, um, in your travels, not necessarily in the Eagle Scout picture, but just in the different stories that we heard, people having to shift like that?
So I would guess, it's just a guess, the majority of the survivors coming back from World War II kind of didn't want to even bother to talk about it. When I was trying to get the two older brothers to talk, I'm 12 and they're in their 40s.
Mm,
It's a lot of pressure, a lot of constant badgering to get them to tell their story. I have a feeling that no one came out of the war unchanged.
mm,
And that probably also goes for the people who were still in the United States. The Rosie the Riveter women who pitched in and ran industry probably came out of the war changed as well. It may have been the most substantial change in history for a very, very long time.
yeah, I would have to agree on that. A lady I took care of in the nursing home was a radio operator because she spoke Mandarin and was talking to Chinese resistance fighters. Nice. Hey, and I know somebody from Job Corps whose grandfather was one of the code talkers. They were Navajo. Like that's kind of
Mhm.
cool. Never got a chance to meet his grandfather, but some of the stories he came up with were pretty amazing. Um, let's see. And how many travel places did you actually travel for the Eagle Scout picture? Because I know you went to Germany, Great Britain.
Germany, Austria, Poland, Britain, a little bit of France, a little bit of Denmark in the process, but a lot in Germany. So I've been to Germany 6 or 7 times now. Some of that after having written the book to go back and make sure that the scene is described as it should be. And so other than that, I've traveled in about 109 countries around the world. Still
Nice.
going.
Yeah, that's another author I have that he's traveled a lot. In fact, right now he's in New Zealand. He does a lot of traveling, but he never really put anything of his travels in his books. So
That's a shame.
when you're doing stuff like that, like when you went to Poland and Germany and all them, did you ever just go to other places for the tourist value, I guess? Because I would have to at
Yes.
least I'd have to at least go to Greece and check out the Colosseum and stuff.
So I have done all of those things as well as going to the spot. There will be a sequel to the Eagle Scout picture.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
Following are the protagonist, Fred, or Zelly, as he's known in Germany, into the post-war eras, and several scenes take place in Rome. And so I was there. I saw the Colosseum, I saw the Pantheon, and then I went to the spot where the rat lines were being organized to take the uh, Nazi Germans who survived the war out of Germany and send them off to South America or to the Middle East. So I went to the seminary where they were staying while they were waiting for Red Cross passports that would smuggle them out of Italy. So I do both on the trips.
Yeah,
So
fun.
the working title of the sequel is Iron Curtain Lies and Spies. Now, whether that will survive to go into print, I don't know, but that's my working title.
Yeah, I always got project titles, what I call them. They're never the same by the time I publish it. So, which
Yeah,
is for the better. The number says that's a lot of stamps in the passport.
it is. Good thing they don't stamp them anymore.
Uh, I don't have a passport, so I wouldn't know. I'd never left the United States. Um, so if someone couldn't afford to travel, like me, what would be your suggestion to get relevant information of the location? Like personally, I used Google extensively while writing my next book. Um, like I said before, it's kind of hard to travel back to Atlantic City in 1874. So I would look at the map from a space and then compare some of the drawings that were in that area that's at the Library of Congress and kind of get a feel for what it's like, but it's not the same. So, what would be your advice for somebody who couldn't
Well,
travel as
Google is a really good place to start, and any one of the mapping aspects of the internet are great. By being an academic, I have had wonderful access to lots of people and places that an average writer or researcher probably wouldn't have. And so I constantly are corresponding by email to universities around the world asking a question. And then they respect the academic credential and they respond back and give me the answer that I don't know that they would do for other places. So in Eagle Scout picture, one of the things I had to make sure was if I described the landmark, was that landmark standing after the war? And what amount of damage had been done to that? And so another thing that I've done is comb the archives and pictures and use those things to help me build authenticity into the book and into the story.
yeah,
The use
goodness.
of Library of Congress is really great. So in the next book, the sequel, part of it is set in Budapest. And so I found a map of Budapest from 1946 in Budapest at a used bookstore
Nice.
and bought it.
Well, that's convenient.
Took a
uh,
lot of digging to get it.
yeah, like I've tried everything trying to find anything with Atlantic City on it in 1874, and it's been a chore. I
Mhm.
have plenty from Denver. I live here, so but Atlantic City is I don't have the money to go to Atlantic City, but they probably would have that, you'd think. Maybe I should.
Looking at places that sell and offer antiques,
Mm,
including coins and stamps, are places that I have found often will help me out find exactly what I'm after.
nice. That's something to think about anyway. Um, so you said you're working on the sequel to your book. Um, is this one? I don't. Did you say if this one was also based on actual events, or are you,
No, this one, the new book will be entirely a flight of fantasy.
right.
So the story, as far as I know it, of the man who was the Eagle Scout ends with his return back to the U.S. But I've left it open so that I have the opportunity to make up the next chapter in his life.
Oh, well, that works. Just follow a logical set of events.
Mhm.
Okay, so moving past the book, you've had quite the career as an educator. And the master's project was the first draft of the Eagle Scout pictures for your master's for, was it creative writing?
Creative writing, yes.
And um, was writing a book always something that you wanted to do after you were done teaching, or was it something that you wanted on the back burner the whole time?
So as a child, I loved writing short stories. I had a short story published when I was in seventh grade and another one when I was eighth grade. I always liked writing fiction, but in the academic world of publish and perish, fiction doesn't really count for you. And so I
Right.
did a lot of textbook writing and writing journal articles and things of that kind professionally. And then as I approached retirement, I said, I want to go back and do fiction writing. And so here I am as a 61-year-old enrolling in a Master's of Fine Arts in Creative Writing program. And so everybody else was English teachers who were half my age, and I'm there trying to learn how to write fiction at the same time that they are. Still in touch with some of the students.
That's kind of gives me hope because I was kind of having an issue with going back to college at, I'll be 48. I'll be 54 by the time I get my master's ish. And so I'm like, God, I want to be too old to enjoy it. But like seeing people like you where you travel the world and stuff, so I'm like, well, maybe it won't be so bad after all.
I don't know that you're ever too late. So publishing a book at my age was probably almost a miracle by itself.
I don't know, because you've had how many degrees do you have? Like you had this long list of degrees. Um,
Yeah, I guess I'm a perpetual student. I like to learn.
well, I would love to do that. I just don't have time now. Jennifer asks, when did Gary get his master's degree?
So the master's degree was in 2023. So
How's
it's
it?
not that long ago that I finally finished up the work.
Cool. Is a PhD in the future?
No, I already have a PhD in my original profession. And so in writing and creative writing, the Master of Fine Arts is the furthest you can go.
Yep.
Now, you could become a teacher of English, which I don't really want to be at this point, and get a degree in English or English literature. But creative writing, the master's degree is the penultimate.
There we go. Jennifer says, "Love it. You're never too old to learn." Yeah, because
That is true. So
you've
keep
taught.
doing it.
Yeah, you've taught a variety of different uh, subjects and people, right? Because you did sixth through eighth grade. Was that right?
Yeah, so I've taught English and social studies and history and coached basketball and then taught both graduate and undergraduate courses in computers and technology and in how to teach in schools of education, which is where I ended up with the last teaching. So quite a varied career over
And
lots of different things.
you also that was with teaching the professors technology.
Yes. So I taught for years in a school that offered a master's in instructional technology. And so I taught both undergraduates in the School of Education and people in the master's degree how to use technology to teach. And
Awesome.
tools like Discord and video conferencing were ones of the things that I taught them how to do.
Awesome. Yeah, because I was really interested when I read that, like, because it really didn't dive much into it. It's just that you taught the kids and the professors on how to use technology. I'm like, well, I wonder what that means.
Mhm.
So I kind of figured that's what it was, but just wanted clarification. Um, so are you planning on getting any more degrees in the future, or are you just gonna call it good and just keep writing books?
I think I'm going to keep writing books. So there's a part of me that would say I wouldn't mind going back for a master's degree in history. So history was an undergraduate minor for me, and I've continued to play with it and take classes. But I kind of think spending my money on colleges and universities isn't as good as spending my money traveling. You
Duh.
can learn history over there, right when it happened.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was really torn on when I started my writing career. I Googled everything, so I learned how to go from writing. I think the last thing I wrote at that point was the essays from college in 2001, but I needed to learn AP style English. No clue how to do that. So I spent the next year and a half when I wasn't writing for clients, I was learning everything I possibly could about AP style English. So
Mhm.
um, I'm a firm believer in being able to look things up yourself and learn and grow. I'm a big proponent of education of any kind, but there's only so much that you could learn. Like when I took the Readsy Masterclass, um, Tom Bromley, the instructor, showed me things I would have never have thought to Google. I was like, oh, that makes all kinds more sense. So, um, since you have that background, you could probably see the benefits of, like, say, a master's degree in creative writing as opposed to trying to Google it yourself. I mean, it would cut down time drastically. You know what you think?
I think it helps for several reasons. One, it gives you a cohort of an audience to have your writing reviewed and appraised by. It gives you an opportunity to say, okay, how would you have written this scene? What would you have done different? What do you think of this cliffhanger? And all authors do that. You know, you have beta readers and alpha readers and reviewers. But when you can do it with a cohort of people that you trust and get to see on a frequent basis and are sharing critiques in both directions, it's really great. So, one of the things that that process taught me more than anything else was how to take creative criticism.
Mm,
And most authors think that's kind of hard to do. And going through the process that I have done, it made it so much easier to actually listen to somebody who said, you know, I really don't like that. And is that scene important for the book? So they always say, kill your darlings in the writing
yeah,
process.
yeah.
Some of the things that you think are the best scenes probably need to go on the cutting room floor. And it takes somebody with courage to tell you that. And it takes courage and compassion to listen to it.
That's one of the things I try to teach is that you can't please 100% of the people 100% of the time. You're going to have haters no matter what for the sake of hating. So if
Yes,
you have to have some kind of a thick skin in order to be an artist of any kind.
it's
And
hard to be a people pleaser and be an artist. That's very much true.
oh yeah, I've seen people throw away promising careers because, like, in one in particular, she was a fairly decent writer, but she got a negative review from a client, and it crushed her soul, and she never went back to it. Like, you can't let that kind of stuff bug you.
So you have to learn how to take the criticism and then figure out what to do with it. Sometimes you leave it, and sometimes you say, yes, that is true. I need to rewrite that scene.
Yeah. What's the worst bit of criticism you ever have ever received?
Oh, gee. There have been so many of them. in in the process. Probably the worst one is I wrote an essay. The very first thing I wrote for my master's program, and this was in how to write creative nonfiction.
Mm.
Okay, so the idea was to be creative, but to stick with the facts and the truth rather than to fictionalize something. And I did a story out of my youth about a lake that um, the boys in the little town, farm town that I grew up in, would often go skinny dipping in. And the critique came back, couldn't you think of anything better to write about than boys skinny dipping? Where the whole thesis and the whole idea was just down the drain right away.
Why?
But
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
published the essay later.
That's awesome. I had a feeling that's where it was going to go. What was the best piece of criticism you ever got? Or no, I guess it wouldn't be criticism, but the best review, I guess.
About this book, one of the first um, readers of the published book wrote that it was a page turner. They couldn't figure out a place to stop and put it down. So they wrote it complete, read the whole book completely in 2 days. And if in a fiction book, if you can make it so that the readers don't want to put it down, you've accomplished a big challenge right away.
Nice.
Because readers can always find a place to stop
Yeah, I know
or
I
throw the
try
book away.
to. I like when I'm reading at night, I'll try to get to the next chapter, but sometimes it's too long, so I'll like stop at the first full paragraph on the right hand side of the page.
Mm. So you've got a habit there.
Oh,
So if I, knowing your habit, I would write a cliffhanger right there every time.
You're not gonna stop this one. That's awesome. Um, okay, so back to the Eagle Scout is available on Amazon, Barnes& Noble, and Apple Book. Is it available anywhere else on other digital platforms as well? Because I know when I have Kingmakers on, I use Draft to Digital, so it's like on a bunch of different digital sites. Did you do anything similar, or was it just those three?
So it should be hitting the Ingram distribution list to get into bookstores and places like that very shortly. So I had to republish the book, unfortunately, and that left me with an old version and a new version. And the old version went the Ingram route, and the new version is taking a little bit of time to catch up to that. But I am happy to publish it anywhere that will take it. So if there are places that you would recommend, just shoot me an email
Yeah.
and I'll be willing to see if I can submit.
All right, now the one I'm stuck on is Amazon, and I just barely got my Barnes& Noble account fixed. That was a long story. But I gotta fix that and upload it to there. So I'm only on Amazon at the moment, except for Draft to Digital, which is kind of like Ingram Spark, except for Ingram Spark has um, a much broader collection of distribution channels as opposed to Draft to Digital. So Draft to Digital would be a good one to check out. But if you're on
Okay.
Ingram, you're probably going to be on all the ones that Draft to Digital has anyway. So I'm still digging into my own stuff. So that means you are self-publishing your book.
Yes, self-published.
Have you ever tried querying?
Oh yes, I queried a lot for this book, and the agents the agent response that made me decide to self-publish said, "We loved your book. It's got a big hook and a great plot. We just want you to rewrite it with a feminine protagonist."
That was World War II. There wasn't a female protagonist.
That's right. And I said, okay, where do I start? Do I have her vacuum the carpet wearing her pearls? Or should I have her be a cook for Hitler's kitchen? What can I do? And unfortunately, putting somebody in Germany, if you are a woman, there are only two things that you're supposed to do:
Yeah.
housekeep and make babies for the Fuhrer.
Yeah, the women were pretty restricted back then.
Mhm.
Um,
Unfortunately, so
the
if you want a speculation on all of World War II, if we have time, the thing that won the war for the Allies was the fact that we allowed women to backfill men in the jobs and industry and business when the guys went off to war.
mm,
And nobody else did that. Germany never did. And their industry and war production suffered at the end of the war because of that.
yeah,
While we had women who were building bombers.
yep.
So
If,
it's the woman who won the war for us.
even today, my mom just retired and she was building parts for the F-35.
Mhm.
um, yeah, no, that's totally. And just, I'm upset for you. That's one of the biggest reasons why I refuse to query because I don't write for an audience of one. If somebody wants to read the story, that's great, but I'm not going to change my story to appease an agent or a publisher. So, but to say
Really.
that they wanted a female protagonist in a um, real life event book where it's the main character is a man, that is asinine.
And so when that happened, I said, oh, I would rather just self-publish it because for me, the goal is getting this story out, an
Mm,
untold story that no one's ever heard. Share it for the in homage to the man who lived it, and that's good enough.
yeah,
What my goal was never to become rich and famous publishing my book. And maybe by going self-publishing, that won't happen. But in my opinion, this would be a wonderfully cinematic book to turn into a limited television series. So Netflix or Paramount, if you're listening and
yeah.
watching,
There you go.
I'm available.
And you can contact him on his websites in the description down below. It's got his contact information. Have you ever thought about trying to write a screenplay of your of Eagle Scout?
I've thought about it. I don't know whether I would do that or not. Right now, I've got about 7 ideas for books, and I want to finish the sequel. Actually, there'll be another sequel after that that I'd like to finish. And then there's a couple other things that I would like to write before I die, if I have the opportunity to. And so we'll see what happens.
Yep. Neo says Netflix and Paramount need new material. There you go. Gary's on. He's ready for you. He's ready to sign a contract.
Yes, I am.
Less than half of it is worth watching. Yep, let's dig it, Netflix. Netflix used to have some good originals, but I don't know what everybody's problem is nowadays. But yeah, I was asked to write a screenplay of my next book, Shadows of Atlantic City. Um, as soon as it's published, I'm going to write the screenplay for it. And if we
Oh,
can't sell it, I'm going to make it on YouTube as an original movie. So
I think that would be wonderful to do.
I think
Have you
more out of
any
fun.
film work before?
What was that?
Have you done any film work before?
No, I have played around with screenplay, but I think very cinematically when I write. And like I can envision exactly what I want, like for a movie trailer for my book,
Mhm.
theme songs. Like when I listen to a theme song, I can see all the scenes that are in the book. And that's how I actually write a lot of my books, is that I take those scenes and then I describe them after I'm done walking. I go around for a walk. But I think there's been times where I thought I would probably make a decent um, director.
Yeah, that's it. It's worth trying. So I produced two book trailers for this book for Eagle Scout Picture myself,
Like,
and had a blast doing it.
was it? Did you do real life or was it animated or anything?
No, it's artificial intelligence and
Oh,
pictures, old pictures that I added things to.
are those some of those pictures on the website? I think I saw them.
Yes, the two trailers are on the website. I'll be in a section called info, I think now.
Okay. So if you're interested in checking those out, his website's link in the description down below. Um, Penumbra says, "I would love a Netflix miniseries, wouldn't we all?" I like
Yes.
but there's times where I'm thinking, it'd just be out of fun. I'd do it on YouTube, make it a YouTube original. I don't know if YouTube does that anymore.
Suspect if you have a way of producing it, they will buy it.
Yeah. Or I could just make it and tell everybody to keep their money, it's mine. Like, I don't know, like, how all that works. So, like, if somebody comes and buys your story, I would have to have creative control. Like, you're not gonna butcher my book. So, like, if somebody came to you like that, would you be safe, would you feel okay to just sell your story outright, or would you have to have some kind of creative input? Like, Stephen King is in every movie. Would you have to have something like that?
Well, I would like to have some creative input, but it's not a requirement for me. I have seen other people take books and make good adaptations of them for um, with success. But if I had the opportunity to help out in some fashion, I would be there to help the director or the cinematographer in making suggestions. I wouldn't insist that the suggestions be taken necessarily. Just like as I got criticism for the book, sometimes I said, you know, you're right. I'll do it that way. So I hired an editor for the book, and the editor was um, excellent in telling me that I did some things wrong. And you know what? He right. I fixed them, and the book turned out to be so much better than what I did or would have had if I were stubborn.
Mm. Um, like, I have beta readers that help me before I put out a book, and I had to rewrite an entire character from my first one, Kingmaker. Um, the semi-main character of the book, I had to rewrite his entire story throughout the entire thing. But it came out much, much better. Everybody kept pointing out they didn't like him. He wasn't likable. So my goal is if I can make my friend cry when she reads the book, I did something right.
Well, that's great. Or have a laugh as she's reading. That's another good thing.
Oh yeah, I've got a couple of characters that do that. In fact, somebody wants um, a origin story on a couple of the characters that are in the book. Have you ever thought about doing that? Like with the Eagle Scout picture, doing like spin-off stories from characters that are already in that book have like their own storyline too.
Yes. Yes, I have thought about that, and part of what will happen in the sequel is a spin-off story like that, not only for the main character, but also for a secondary character. And the book that, as it stands now, the Eagle Scout picture, is only half the book that I wrote for the master's project that exists in the library. Its title is An American Spy in Hitler's Reich. And the first half of that book is what happened to the main character as they were being recruited and trained
Mm.
before going to Germany. And one of the things that my master's advisor said was, you know, this book would be so much better if you just started it in Germany. And so I did. So you only have the last half of the book in print as the Eagle Scout picture. And one of the things I would like to start doing is dropping on some of the earlier chapters that I've left out, which was still good writing, that describe the training of the character that became the spy in
Yeah.
Nazi Germany.
So kind of do like a remastered version, or
Yes.
like what Stephen King
But
did.
wasn't on the website. Yeah.
Yeah. Stephen King, when he did The Stand, he had to cut it down, and so you got a much thinner version. And then afterwards, they did the uncut version, which was like 400, 500 pages longer. It was much, much
Yeah.
bigger book.
This would add about 125 pages if I did that. So I'm thinking about just dropping them a couple chapters at a time on the website, letting fans look if they're interested.
Turn them into like a serial.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of fun. Um, does anybody have any more questions before we call it a night? It's 7:49. Um, I'm looking forward to. I'm probably going to wind up buying this one. I'm a big fan of World War II,
Good. I
and
need more people to do
yeah,
that.
don't we all? But I'm a big fan of World War II, anything, and the story sounds intriguing, especially if it's based on a real the events of a real guy. It's like I love that kind of stuff. So. I'm not sure how many World War II fans we have in the audience, but you got one. So,
So there's probably a few World War II fans. So one of the things that I was surprised about in looking at the reviews from this book and people who have already bought it and read it, there were a lot of women.
mm,
I thought the book would probably appeal mostly to older conservative men,
yeah,
but a lot of women have read it and liked it. And so that surprised me. 5-star reviews from ladies. So if there's any ladies in the audience right now, you may like it. There's a little bit of romance in the book.
there we go. There's romance. Let's see. Penumbra says, I will be sending this one to my dad.
Good.
Sam says, thank
Be
you
a
so
nice
much.
Father's Day present coming up here.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that is, huh? Next month. No, April, May, June. It's coming up. So, um, Sam says, thank you so much for joining us. It was very interesting. Yes, I'd love to.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it.
You are welcome. Oh, yeah, probably have to have you on again when you have your sequel. Um,
Sure, always will.
and right now, it's the Eagle Scout picture is available right now on Amazon, Barnes Noble, and Apple Book. The link to Amazon is in the description of the video, but Barnes Noble and Apple Book links are on the website, which I believe I have linked in the description as well. And the QR code that's on this video goes to the Amazon page for the book. So probably should just do your website. It would have been easier.
Right, well, the website is garykidney.com. So it's easy enough to do. If you've got my name and .com on the end, you'll get right to it.
Yep, and the book is right there on front page.
Mhm.
Alrighty. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. We have a few more minutes. Um, is there?
Does
Do you? What was that?
Shadow have any questions?
Do you have a question? No, you don't speak that one. Um, aside from okay, so here's something that's a little bit off. Like you're following the main character from Eagle Scout. Are there any others that you have planned for turning into books, or are you just going to leave those as short stories?
So
Kind of like have a
there's a
different point of
character
view.
of Vinny in this book that will probably also be a spun-off to his own book. He has a small role in this one, but what he was doing was very important.
What about from other sides of the war, like or other stories of the war, maybe from different areas? Have you ever thought about doing
So
those?
my real interest was more in the Pacific theater than it was in the European theater, if you can believe that, in the process. And so
Mine too.
I have 2 or 3 stories that out of the Pacific theater that I would really like to be able to tell if I have the opportunity to do it. A story of a survivor of the Indianapolis ship
Yeah.
sinking. It was the worst naval disaster ever. I actually had an opportunity to interview a survivor, and I have his eyewitness account to the tale of that. And then I'd like to look at the possibility of doing some other stories. I don't think I will dramatize my brother's stories,
I was,
even
I
though
was
they have great deal of interest. I don't know that I want to necessarily go there.
that's I was just about to ask if you were going to use any of your brother's stories. I bet you they probably had a plethora of
They do. And I know several of them, but I'm sure there are lots of stories they didn't tell me.
them. Probably. I know I didn't tell my brother everything. Um, well, alrighty. I guess Penumbra Mind says, "All hail the feline overlords." Yeah, I'm your co-host. Alrighty. Well, thank you very much, Gary, for hanging out with us. It was very
Well,
interesting.
thank you for having me for after hours. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Yep, I'm looking forward to reading the Eagle Scout picture. It's available right now. When do you have a ETA on the sequel to it at all?
I'm anticipating the sequel will be February next year.
Well, cool. Well, you'll have
About a
to
year.
be back on. What was that? What did you say on that one? I didn't hear
I
that.
said about a year for each book
Okay. Well, cool.
now.
Well, I will. You'll have to be on again, and we can talk about that one. But is there? I think everybody is done for the night. No more questions coming in. All
Great.
right.
Well, good night to everyone.
And thank you for hanging out with us. And good luck on your sequel.
Thank you much.
I'm looking
Take
forward
care.
to the Eagle Scout. Have a good one. And boom, there we go. Oh, there, that works. Anyway, that was a lot of fun.
Powering off.
I'm always interested in World War II everything. Definitely going to be adding that one to my to be read pile. Yeah. Let me see if I can get back on here. Bam, there we go. Oh, anywho, yeah, because I really, really enjoy World War II stuff. So I'm definitely adding that one. If I can see if I can do that right now so I don't forget. Because I will. I also have to buy the other book from Timothy too. There we go. Eagle Scout picture. Bam. Does he have? Oh, he has a paperback. Cool. I prefer paperbacks to digital. I don't think I have a single digital book. I'm old fashioned. I like paper. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that one on bookmark so I can buy it. Make sure I have money for it. Anywho, okay, so we're gonna go ahead and do our card. Mine is mush. Oh, all right. Oh yeah, it's on Book Baby. Sweet. I need to do an article on that one. Okay. Get back to where I was here. Whoa. There we go. Okay, last week's affirmation was writing is a skill that others long for. I am grateful that it comes easily to me. I have the power to create greater worlds with the mighty stroke of my pen. And I know, I didn't add it to the community tab. I suck. I'll try to remember. See, now that Neo's not reminding me, I don't do it. All right. This week's daily affirmation is, or hopefully we'll add, I remember the challenges my literary idols faced and overcame and reflect on how different the world would be had they not found the courage to tell their stories. Okay, let me try that again. Okay. I remember the challenges my literary idols faced and overcame and reflect on how different the world would be had they not found the courage to tell their stories. Like, there's a good one. Stephen King. He threw away, I think it was Carrie, and his wife pulled it out of the trash. So I guess that wasn't him overcoming it. That was his wife. Still. So it's my fault? No, it's not your fault. I'll blame it on you. It's your fault, Neo. You don't remind me. I get digital first, then buy print copies. I don't have I don't own a single digital book. I don't even have an app to read them on. Okay, I'm a big fan of paper. I guess I'm old school. A big part of that, though, is because of my eyesight. I stare at a screen all day. The last thing I want to do for entertainment is stare at a screen again for trying to read. Um, I rarely read anything off my phone. I'd rather read it off I have a 32-inch widescreen. Makes a big difference. So, but I can't. It's really hard on my eyes to try to read off my phone. So, another reason why I'm not very social on social media. Anne McCaffrey fighting the fight to get women sci-fi writers recognized. Well, I was on hiatus. Oh, there you go. That's yeah, good one, Maggie. Yeah, but yeah, having to like face a publisher that wants you to change the main character, even though it's based on a real person, I would do it too. I'd tell them to sit and spin. Not happening. For one thing, it wouldn't be historically accurate. That's, I don't know. I'm telling you, I'm a stickler for that kind of stuff, I guess. Anyway, since 1967. Yeah. Anywho, that was a lot of fun. The man has a lot of degrees. I think he had like 3 bachelors and I thought he said he had 2 masters, but maybe just the one. But yeah, he's had a very long career in education. I hate when they apply PC modeling to historical events, right? Me too. Well, that was one of the, like, even in games, one of the battlefields, if I remember right, had a female protagonist warrior type character. And like, a lot of people hated it because it wasn't accurate. Or you get the people that complain that most of the people on the battlefield will write. Yeah, no shit. History. Read it. Not everybody. I'm not saying everybody was, but the world was way different in 1945. I believe it was a master's and a PhD. Yeah, he said he had a PhD in one thing and then a master's in the creative writing. So that's what I'm going for. But I agree. I don't know if I want to be a teacher. So depending which battle they were on. That's true. Like the Night Witches, the female pilots for Russia. So, and the Tuskegee Airmen, they were all black. So it really did. But a lot of the PC stuff nowadays is like trying to push like too much diversity. In 1945, there wasn't a lot of it. So the battles between the Chinese and Japanese World War II were so often overlooked. Oh yeah, like Japan took half of China before the war started. So they pushed it all the way. I don't know if it was an exactly half, but it was a big swath of land. So I don't see that very often. And then shortly after that's when we put the tariffs in place and stopped them from getting their oil and something else. But anyway, yeah, there was a. I don't know if I've seen a World War II movie from the Japanese or Chinese perspective of fighting Japan. They never talk about how people fled into the interior of China to escape. Yeah. At that point, China was kind of a cold ally, but yeah, a lot of things didn't get told. A lot of those stories never will, because people are dying. Kind of grim, but it's true. So many good stories of World War II. What is it about World War II as opposed to everything else? Why is a lot of people romanticize about it? For me, I think it was because of the innovation and the technology, the advancements, the just everything about it. I guess I don't know, because we went from biplanes to single blade planes, or single wing fixed wing single fixed wing planes, rapidly, and then we went from the Wildcats to the Hellcats. Anyway, romanticism around World War One horrifies me. Oh, it was gory. World War One was bad. The trench war was horrible. Yeah, no man's land. The stories of that area of land, no man's land, is just it's haunting. So I don't know. Probably why there's not a lot of them. I don't know what it is about World War II. I think it is the advancements of technology for me. Is how watching everything, how it advances, and how we created stuff out of we innovated on necessity, and the rapid pace in which we did it was incredible back then. So I don't know. plus the stories that come out of it. I read The Diary of Anne Frank. That's, I think, what started my journey for down World War II. Was I was in, I can't remember what grade that was. It was in grade school. I remember that, but I can't remember what grade it was in. Fifth or sixth. I had to be after fifth, so maybe sixth or seventh, maybe. So middle school. Anyway, after that, that's when I started getting really interested in World War II. So I watched World War II movies. I have World War II games. Like I love World of Warships and War Thunder. But once we get to a certain point in those games where it's today's technology, I lose interest. I don't know what it is. I don't like Call of Duty. I'd like the Call of Duty that was based in World War II, but nowadays it's that modern warfare stuff, and I'm just not, doesn't float my boat. I don't know what it is. I'm just weird. Crime studies. Yep, that was Shadow. That is my co-host, but like I said earlier, I think I'm her co-host. Anytime the cameras go on, the lights go on, she has to be in my lap. Alrighty. Anywho, that was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to talking to Gary again when he gets his next book out. Don't forget that his book, The Eagle Scout Picture, is available on Amazon, Barnes Noble, and Apple Books, and links to those are in the description down below. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can always hit me up on social media. I'm more active on Threads and Instagram. Definitely active on YouTube, obviously. But yeah. And my books are available on Amazon at the moment, Kingmaker, and I will be having the next one out. Should be next month, maybe. Anywho, have a good one. Don't forget that I'll be on the riding sprint tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Mountain Time for 2 hours. We'll do probably Fire and Rain again while I work on a book cover to my book. This was all screwed up. Have a good one, and we'll see you next time.